Next up, we've got Kerry Bodmin from Waikato Regional Council here to talk to us about the eradication and the invasion curve from theory to practice. And a little known fact about Kerry is she's been to New Zealand's sub-Antarctic islands. One of the few people we have. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. I'm just recovering from a bit of a cold, so I'm hoping that my throat's going to last the distance. As Mark mentioned, I work at Waikato Regional Council. I've been there just over a year in the pest plant team. And today I am going to focus a bit on plants, but I've got some pest animals in there too, and a bit of community as well, so hopefully you'll all find something to take away from this. So where are we heading today? Just a quick recap on what is eradication and how does it relate to the invasion curve. Then we're going to forge ahead with some case studies, the good, the has promised, and the one that got away. And finally, having a look at what are some common factors of success and some challenges for us all to consider moving forward. I was going to think about eradication and definition, but I thought it was much easier just to show it by a picture. We all know what it is. You've got a pest, you do something about it, the pest is gone, but not only does that allow our native flora and fauna to recover, but we're also protecting our native biodiversity. So a quick recap on our invasion curve. As you can see, the far bottom left hand is where we have the most bang for buck. That's prevention, stopping something getting there. Once the pest arrives, we have a very small window in which we can do something about it and get rid of it. As the pest numbers grow through exponential growth and spread, the cost of the area infested and the cost of control and the impact of that control increases exponentially to a point where eradication is no longer feasible and you have to move to a different management regime. So I am assuming that you've all got a pest in mind. You know what the pest is, you've done all your assessments and your evaluations and everything, and you've popped out at eradication. Oops, you've popped out at eradication. And if it's not eradication, you're going to move to one of these other management options. So cracking into our first case study on the good. New Zealand has a really strong reputation for pest eradication on islands. It started in 1964 with Don Mertens, who led the eradication of Norway rat on Maria Island, which is part of the Noises group in the Hauraki Gulf in Auckland. 285 square kilometres of island. Now, not only did Don and his team eradicate the rat, but it opened the way for ecological restoration. It also provided an opportunity for public education and engagement to help keep those islands pest-free. The next step was second generation toxins, and that was brodifacoum, which enabled a large jump in the area of islands that we could eradicate pests on, into Breaksea Island and Fiordland. Taylor and Thomas cut tracks across this island and hand-laid poison every 50 metres, both horizontally and vertically. Just 6 years, am I doing my maths? 8 years later, we had another step change, and that was the use of GPS systems and aircraft to get good bait coverage across rugged islands without any gaps to target both Norway rat and Kiore. Oops, sorry. And the last step change was then taking the lessons learnt from Kapiti, the research trials undertaken, the environmental risk assessments, and building on that and focusing on those knowledge gaps, which then enabled us to do Campbell Island eradication, 11,000 hectares, led by Pete McClellan and DOC. There was 110 successful pest island eradications, and my question was why? Why were they so successful? I'm just going to park that for the moment and move on to South Georgia Island, which tied in nicely with one of our earlier speakers. That was totally unintentional, but the point I'm making here is that the expertise that New Zealanders gained from those pest island eradications was then borrowed and used to help inform the South Georgia Island eradication of Norway rat. And that expertise continued with Bruce Robertson and Neil Gemmell from the University of Otago doing some genetic work on the rats from that island, and they discovered that in the 3 different valleys of vegetation, that those populations were discrete populations and they could be used as a rolling eradication front, something we've learnt from and have used since 2018. And importantly, as our previous speaker mentioned, there was pathway management needed. So this is an island that's regularly visited by tourists, and so one of the solutions there was to park the tourist boats offshore and use smaller boats to transfer tourists from the big boats to the island, and in those smaller boats rats can't hide. So taking all the lessons learnt from here, moving forward for New Zealand, is the Island Ocean Connection Challenge. This is Moriori and Māori groups, community trusts, the Department of Conservation, Te Papa Atawhai, have partnered with global conservation charities. This is a chance for us to develop new methodologies, grow the toolbox, and more importantly, grow the economic opportunities available. The New Zealand government has contributed $54 million towards pest eradication on 3 islands, and they're hoping to raise the balance of the money to get up to $202 million. The first island, Maukahuka, or Auckland Island, is 46,000 hectares. There's a multi-species eradication plan for mice, pigs and feral cats. It's mostly dock-led, with global charities contributing to fund that. The second island, Rekohu on Chatham Islands, is the main island, but also Pitt Island. The aim there is to remove possums and feral cats. And the step change here is that it's an island that is inhabited by people. So we're having to do these pest eradications island-wide whilst people are living there, earning their income and going about their day-to-day. And the last island is Rakiura, Stewart Island, the largest of the lot, 174,000 hectares. The aim here is to remove rats, possums, feral cats and hedgehogs. Again, all while being that island is inhabited. My next case study is not a planned eradication, but rather an incursion response. And this was for painted apple moth. For anyone who was in Auckland in the late 90s or early 2000s, you would have lived through this or been next to this. Painted apple moth was led by Biosecurity New Zealand, and it wasn't an expected response. It was on no one's radar that this caterpillar could be an issue. It was first found in 1999 in West Auckland. It rapidly grew and expanded, aided by movement by people, unintentionally I might add, which resulted in an aerial operation, and at its height it was spraying over 10,000 hectares, 170,000 homes, done by a Whaka Friendship, which is in the bottom right corner there, and a helicopter. Can you just imagine what would happen today if you proposed to spray a section of Auckland? It may happen. On top of the aerial spraying, there was also host removal, largely trees, and also some trapping. In 2006, it was declared eradicated, and the cost of the program was $62 million. It was within the economic impact range, which went from $58 million up to $356 million. So it was a substantial program. But why was it successful? The Auditor General's Office identified 4 main reasons. One, that there was a dedicated response team. Now, this is not staff trying to do their day job and deal with a response, which is how the operation started, but a dedicated team specifically for this incursion response, who were resourced appropriately. There was strong project management discipline brought into the program, and there was clear roles and responsibilities. The collaborative science in the beginning of the program, it was a competitive model that was used, and that was changed early on to be a collaborative science model. A technical advisory group, or TAG, was formed. There were 11 government agencies involved in this. There were multiple experts, including Rud Kleinpast. And for our SINs, there was a council representative both from Auckland and Waitakere, and I was the Waitakere one. We didn't get voting rights, but we got to observe on the TAG. Health monitoring which you might go, why are we doing that? So BTK is specific to caterpillars. It doesn't affect humans. But what we did find is that the spray formulation contained egg and soy, and that could exacerbate some people's pre-existing conditions or food allergies. So quite a large chunk of the budget was actually spent on monitoring people's health and responding to that by either calling them prior to a spray operation or removing them from the area before a spray took place. And the last one was community needs. Lack of information was really the key part here, and people were fearful and uninformed. So there were regular community and stakeholder updates to keep everyone up to speed with where the program was at. I'm going to move on now to this one, which has promise. We're heading back to plants, which is my stronghold. So the first one is marshwort, Nymphodes geminata. It's an aquatic plant. It looks a bit like a water lily, and it has a yellow flower with hairy fringes around its petals. It's from Australia. It's not known to set seed in New Zealand, and from all the regional pest management plans in New Zealand, 4 councils have got it as exclusion. Waikato Regional Council is one of them. 4 have it as eradication, and 8 don't list it at all. This is a little plug for data and how awesome it can be. This is Plantel, which is our version of a database. It not only captures the distribution of plant pests in our region, but it also captures operational details like when was something visited, when was it sprayed, or hand removal was undertaken. You'll see there's 2 sites there that you can, the green dot with the yellow ring around it, that's been controlled to 0 density and we're now monitoring it. But today I'm going to focus on the red ringed dot there. So marshwort was first discovered at this site in February 2020, and a month later it was treated with glyphosate, 3%. Oh, sorry, later that week it was treated with glyphosate at 3%, and a month later we had 0 fines. Awesome, job done. Not quite. 9 months later, there was 3 square metres of the plant came back, and a year and 10 months later was the next time the site was visited, and we'd bumped up to 75 square metres. That gap there also coincided with some COVID lockdowns, I might add. So the site was again sprayed with 3% glyphosate, and this time the site was visited every 6 weeks. Frequency was the name of the game. And what was found was just seedlings, uncovered under the dead vegetation. 50 seedlings to start with, down to 35, down to 12. Some plants underwater, which proved a bit difficult. And then you can see the pond looking much more open. But in 2024, there was about an 18-month period where the site wasn't visited, and we're back up to 2 square metres. So the plant has bounced back, but we've still got potential to do something about it. The last case study is the one that got away. If you don't know alligator weed, you're very lucky. If you do, you know what I'm on about. Originally from South America, it was introduced to New Zealand in about 1906 in Kaipara in Northland. It made its way to Waikato in about 1984, but what I'm going to focus on is it was found in the lower Waikato Delta in 1990. There was a bit of a delay before eradication really kicked off and got underway in 1994, and that was largely around both management concerns and gaining consent. And then again, a 3-year period in 97 to 2000 when no control was undertaken. There were issues with discharge permits, budget and management. So not surprisingly, when Paul Champion reviewed the program in 2000, he was quite scathing of it. Happily, we got all our consents in line, we improved what we were doing, we included aerial treatment, and in 2008, when Paul Champion reviewed the program again, he said, yep, you're on track, you're doing good. Had some suggested improvements. In 2014, we moved from eradication to progressive containment, just simply to the size of the infestations now. In 2016, we still got the green tick, and we were reducing the number of sites. Sadly, we get a lot of fragmentation, and that means reinvasion. And today, in 2025, we're still under progressive containment. We have invested quite a lot of money in refining our control tools, and collectively as councils, we funded the work by NIWA, where they looked at fragmentation and then a field trial of a revised herbicide treatment, 10% MET, 1 gly and 0.5% expedient. We've also collectively funded the Ute Guide, which came out in February this year, which consolidates all the lessons that we've learnt and all the information we have on alligator weed now in a nice, easy to understand manual, both for landowners as well as council staff. And just to give you an idea of the problem that we're managing, in 2025 we're going to spend about $600,000 just containing alligator weed plus staff time. So what are our factors of success that are common throughout the whole? I'm going to assume here that everyone knows how to ID the pest. They know how to create a plan. They know how to do the plan. And they know how to fund the plan. And then they're going to review the plan. It's a big assumption, I know. So what are the other factors that make these programs successful? The first one I thought about was there's a clear goal. And I'm not just talking about your target species here, but what is the outcome that we're trying to achieve? What is the biodiversity gain? What is it that people get out of this that is beneficial for not only them, but the environment as well? The second one is people. It's a team effort. Clear roles and responsibilities really help. Having specialists and experts on hand to give you good advice at the time you need it. And also with that, building capability within the team, growing their experience so that they can go on and use those principles in other programs. And lastly, and the importance, as other speakers have mentioned, of engaging with the community. Tell the story. Gain and build the social licence to do the job that we're doing. The third one is a program approach. I think pest animals can do this pretty well, and plants have got a lot to learn. For a lot of the pest island eradications, there's a national eradication plan. And then each island is assessed because there are local factors to take into account. So there's a feasibility study done for each island before an eradication is undertaken. What are those local factors that could change the outcome? What methodologies need to be tweaked to make it successful for that site? Time and time again, it's built on the previous success and the methodologies and the lessons learnt from prior eradication programs. And importantly, they have the Island Eradication Advisory Group, which is a group of experts, and their sole purpose is to foster expertise in pest eradication and develop and promote national best practice. And the last block I've got is invest. And I'm not just talking about money, although money does help, but it's investing in trialling and testing methodologies, investing in research. What are the successes? Building on those over time so that you get a cumulative program. And here's Kerry's view on some challenges to consider moving forward. I shamelessly stole this from Paul Champion, and if any of you were at last year's NETS at the eradication workshop, you'll remember this, the big conundrum. How to balance lack of evidence that you're going to have a problem with the opportunity to act. And that is the really tricky line. Which pest could be your alligator weed? Because you've all got one. There are an estimated 25,000 exotic plants in New Zealand. And for plants, there's a 10% and 10% rule. So 10% of those exotic plants in New Zealand will go on to become adventive. That's 2,500 species. Of those 2,500 species, another 10% will go on to become invasive species. How do we know which ones are going to become invasive? And how many of those invasives are going to be our next top threats? It's a bit slow. The second one is just acknowledging that DOC manages over a third of New Zealand. That's a large chunk of land. And sadly, we all know this, they don't have the funding to match the pest issues. So my questions are, can we change the funding model? Could we target the International Visitor Levy specifically to deal with pest issues? Pest plants in particular. I think DOC are well good on that. Pest animals, they can always do more, but pest plants, woefully underfunded. Can we change how DOC works with regional councils? Not only as good neighbours, but as good biosecurity citizens. And I would put the challenge out there to regional councils as well. It's up to us to engage with DOC as well, to get them to understand what our priorities are and where they can help and participate and maybe take our priorities into consideration when formulating their own. And the last challenge I had is how do we capture and retain eradication experience? There's a lot more pest plants than there are animal species, and the budgets are orders of magnitude less. We do, however, have this fantastic tool called Weed Busters, and I did wonder if we perhaps could invent and create a professional page whereby we capture what herbicides or manual removal methods work really well for the pests that we're targeting. Could we collectively, as regional councils in DOC and LINZ, come up with a top 5 or 10 and create national eradication plans for these? I'm not talking about the MPI plans or the nippers, but the next tier down. Could we do that collectively and decide what those species might be, and then conduct local feasibility assessments so that we can go forth and conquer? And could we create a pest plant expert panel that could provide us advice and feedback on what we need to do? And the last slide is just to show you it's not about the killing things, but it's about restoring our native environment so that the flora and fauna and the people can thrive. Thank you.